Hello and welcome to a special episode of To The Point. After the aftermath of the Delhi elections and with Parliament convening in just 4 days' time, my guest today is the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu, and he's agreed to speak about a range of issues confronting the government. Mr. Naidu, let's start with the Delhi election results. All the polls suggest that if the elections had been held after the May general elections, the BJP could have won perhaps as many as 60 assembly seats. 8 months later, you ended up with just 3. Clearly, that delay has cost you, but why did that delay happen?
I agree with you. Even I have acknowledged it publicly. It was a tactical mistake. But it was a decision taken correctively.
But when you say it was a tactical mistake, whose responsibility was it? Was it Mr. Modi? Was it Mr. Amit Shah? Or does it fall lower down the ladder?
See, in my party, no individual can take decision. As a party president, I have experienced it. I said it also at that time. My famous quote is there. President presides, team decides. Same is the case even now.
But when you say the president decides, that means the president is the first responsibility.
President presides and team decides.
So in other words, you're exonerating the president and saying it's a collective responsibility.
It's a collective responsibility. Where is the question of exonerating? We discuss, we debate, sometimes we agree, disagree, and at the end of it, we can take a decision. It's a collective decision. All of us are responsible for the same.
Now you say it was a tactical mistake. Would you accept it was actually with
Definitely
hindsight?
It's a tactical mistake.
A very serious mistake.
Of course.
And as a result of this mistake, an election that you could have comfortably won, you've embarrassingly lost.
We lost it.
People say a second factor that was responsible for the BJP's poor performance was the decision to appoint Kiran Bedi as your chief ministerial candidate. With hindsight, would you accept that was perhaps an error?
I don't think so. If you analyze the election results, your base is intact. Percentage of votes vis-a-vis the last assembly election. Secondly, if you analyze others' performance, the Congress was 24.9% and it has ended up 9%. 15% went to AAP. Then Samajwadi, then Bahujan Samaj Party 5.38 come to 0.038. And then left all parties, they have transferred their votes to AAP. And AAP became a beneficiary.
All right, you've raised a different issue. I'll come back to Kiran Bedi. Let me answer this issue first. You're saying to me that, in fact, your vote share compared to December 2013 only went down by 1%. You're right. But compared to May 2014, it went down by astonishing 14%. And more importantly, when the Congress and BSP vote share collapsed, it went entirely to Aam Aadmi. You didn't get anything at all. Now, those are serious issues of concern.
No, definitely every election is a lesson. Every election there is a message. It's a setback. I'm telling you, setback. We have to analyze, understand, and then take corrective steps. But coming back to what you have said earlier, with regard to Parliament and Assembly, Parliament was a Modi election. Assembly is a local election. So, India elects Delhi. Delhi do not elect India. Delhi elects Delhi local government. They have chosen Arvind Kejriwal for whatever reason. It is their judgment and we respect it, one. Secondly, see our Lok Sabha share in Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Haryana, and see our assembly share in those states. Between Lok Sabha share and assembly share, even we have won those states also, there is a decline in percentage.
Absolutely. But you were good enough to say that this was a setback. You were good enough to say there was a message. You were good enough to say there was a lesson. What's the message the Delhi voter has given you?
One, there is another dimension to this. I'll be failing in my responsibility, and you also have to analyze it as a very serious commentator and analyst. The election is decided on the day when Sri Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi has declared they will reduce by 50% power tariff and also water rates. That has clinched the issue in their favor according to my analysis, basic analysis, because I also have some knowledge about Delhi. That has influenced the voters to the maximum possible extent. Second, transfer of the entire opposition vote to that side, because they thought Modi is better for the country and Kejriwal with all these promises is good for Delhi. They have chosen him.
The interesting thing is Mr. Kejriwal offered a 50% cut in electricity rates. He offered free water up to 20,000 litres per household per month. The BJP actually did offer to reduce electricity rates. It's in your manifesto, but you didn't say by how much. You said that you would review water, but again, you didn't say how significantly. In other words, you didn't go sufficiently down that road.
Exactly. We can't. We shouldn't have gone also, I tell you, because it's impossible to fulfill this promise. I know the real revenue of Delhi. If you want to take care of all this, you have to enhance revenue. There are no other methods. And he also said he will reduce VAT also. Reducing the revenue and increasing the subsidy, how can these two things go together?
That I understand, but let's stick to you. Are you in a sense suggesting that Mr. Kejriwal did better than you and won the election because in a sense, in quotations, he bought it in a way in which you couldn't buy it? He offered cuts you couldn't offer, therefore he won.
I don't use the words buy and all. You commentators and journalists, you have the freedom, but as a politician, I can't use such phraseology. But one thing, he could make that promises because we understand the reality. We did not do. We were more constructive. He was more liberal with promises because he thought he must first win and then perform. We have won elections earlier. We have performed. We know the practical difficulties. That's why we couldn't make that specific promise.
You're coming close to suggesting that he was perhaps careless or irresponsible in what he was offering. Are you coming close to that?
I'm not making... See, just now he became chief minister, and that too with a popular mandate. Why should I use such phrases? Let us see. Let us wait.
Let's then come back to Kiran Bedi. I'm going to once again put you the question that Kiran Bedi was the wrong choice, and this time I'll give you reasons why people think she was the wrong choice. First of all, she's not a politician. Secondly, her choice as your CM candidate created dissonance and disaffection in your ranks. Thirdly, her past record of making anti-Modi, anti-political comments came to haunt her. Fourth, some of the interviews she gave boomeranged on the party. And finally, she simply didn't inspire the voters. For all 5 reasons, she was not the best choice. Harsh Vardhan could have been a much better choice.
There is no meaning in going back and discussing this first. And moreover, Kiran Bedi is not responsible for our defeat. There are other factors, as I explained to you. It might have added or not added, to what extent that has to be analyzed. But one thing I can tell you, for that matter, even Arvind Kejriwal is not a politician. He just entered politics. So being a politician is not a big...
Except this was his second election, this
so
was
what?
her first.
But he ran away within 49 days.
And she lost Krishna Nagar, a seat you haven't
That's
lost
really
for 20
unfortunate.
years.
I agree with you. That's a very strong hold of the BJP, and why we lost in that constituency, that has to be analyzed.
Are you embarrassed by that defeat?
Definitely, every defeat is an embarrassment. If you just simply say nothing like that and all, then you are arrogant.
You know, it's not just Kiran Bedi that was in fact seen as a liability for the BJP. Your entire ticket selection, candidate selection seemed to be a mess. First of all, in many cases, you didn't announce the candidates virtually till the last moment. Then out of 70, at least 8, which is more than 10%, came from outside. They had no connection with the BJP. And many of your loyal party workers felt they were being pushed out so that outsiders were coming in. Would you accept that candidate selection and announcement also should have been better handled?
No. Thing is, we should have taken early decision. That would have helped us. But if you analyze the reasons, they are not the basic reasons for our setback. The reasons are different. As I told you, in spite of all this, my vote bank is intact. In spite of all these things, there is a difference between Lok Sabha and Assembly elections.
Absolutely. Your vote bank is intact, but you needed your vote bank to grow to win, and it didn't grow.
Yes.
Now, one reason why perhaps it didn't grow could be the nature of the campaign you fought. People said the BJP fought a negative campaign. Mr. Modi's powerful message of good governance and development got drowned out.
So my point is very simple. Even now, Modi is immensely popular with the people, not only in Delhi, across the country. People want Modi to rule the country, and they thought Arvind, with all the promises, is better suited to rule Delhi. They gave him an opportunity. Let us respect it.
But don't you think that one reason why they chose Arvind and not Modi is because Mr. Modi's message of good governance and development got drowned out in your campaign? Instead, people saw a campaign where you seem to be personally targeting Arvind Kejriwal.
It is not Modi versus Kejriwal at all. Modi versus Kejriwal has happened in Varanasi, and you know the result. Here, this election is who will rule Delhi better. People thought in their own wisdom that Arvind will rule better. They gave him an opportunity.
That I don't deny. But you know, for many people, if you look at the nature of the personal attacks the BJP made against Arvind Kejriwal, Mr. Modi called him a Naxalite, Nirmala Sitaram called him a chore, Nupur Sharma called him a monkey, Kiran Bedi said he was toxic. People said this targeting of Kejriwal is the wrong way. A, it's negative. B, it's actually boosting him up in people's standing. And most importantly of all, C, it's not embarrassing him. Do you think the campaign tactics and strategy didn't work to your advantage, they worked to his advantage instead?
So see, these are all details for analysis. When we analyze the elections and then identify the factors, we'll be learning lessons from them.
But you accept that this is an area where a lesson has to be learned?
And every election, you have to learn lessons when you lose. When you didn't improve sufficiently, then also you have to learn a lesson. Now the biggest lesson, according to me, my party has to learn is, you have been in elections, you won 7 states out of 8 states that went to poll. Now you lost 1 state that took national capital. The lesson you have to learn is, you are winning in a 3-cornered contest, you are winning in a 4-cornered contest. When all the opposition combine together, you must be able to win. That is the biggest lesson and the challenge before us. And we have to work overtime, we have to work hard, we have to adopt new strategies and then new methods to reach out to larger sections. As you have rightly said, if the people are unhappy with Congress and with BSP and left and all, why they shifted to Aam Aadmi, why not to BJP? That is also an area where we have to study and then try to reach out those sections also. In between, I must also say it openly, some of the statements made by some of our so-called colleagues, they have also damaged us to the extent of driving away the entire minorities to that side. That is also a lesson we have to learn.
I'll come to that, but are you suggesting first that in a 2-cornered fight, unlike a 3- and 4-cornered fight, in a 2-cornered fight the BJP is a little vulnerable, victory is not so certain?
Definitely you must work hard, you must expand your base. I am talking of the reality. The reality is BJP is not a 50% plus party in various states. Try to understand. In national level, in spite of that, you got it because it's not because of a multi-cornered contest alone. It's because of a strong personality of Narendra Modi and his appeal and his performance and his past record has overcome all this and then made people to think, but here is a person, let us believe in him, and there was a hope and people voted for that. In every state, that's not the situation.
It's absolutely true that you say that you didn't have an equally strong personality at the head of your campaign in Delhi. But I'm saying that because you didn't have one, do you think that strategy of asking 5 questions a day to Arvind Kejriwal was the wrong one? Because A, those questions are weak and tired, and B, they seemed to build up Kejriwal without embarrassing him, and it underlined the fact that Kejriwal became bigger and bigger and you had no equivalent.
These are the interpretations and way of looking things by media and by our critics. My point is very simple. There is nothing wrong in raising questions. He is answerable. But people were influenced by other reasons. For example, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, he was objecting to BJP saying why should they bring my children into picture? Who brought the children into picture? Not BJP. He took their name and then took a oath on his children that he will never go with Congress. So a question was raised. But point is, Karandi, I must tell you, these are not the reasons. The reasons, as I told you, is the total shift of the vote towards that from all other parties, and secondly, our inability to expand further. These are the 2 lessons we have to learn. And then the populistic promises he has made, in which we could not compete with him.
A moment ago you spoke about, and very honestly and candidly you spoke about, comments made by many of your colleagues which had A, offended the minorities, and B, driven away people who should otherwise have been voting for you. You're talking in fact about the way the atmosphere was vitiated by Ghar Wapsi campaigns, attacks on churches, protests about alleged love jihads. This not only offended Muslims and Christians, the truth is, it also offended a lot of Hindus.
Definitely, because Hindus, they always believe in peaceful coexistence. They have been living for ages together. People are not happy with comments made by some of our colleagues saying that you should have 4 children, 6 children and all. That did not go well with
or haramzadon.
Secondly, even that also. That has been publicly disapproved by the Honorable Prime Minister. Even I have called that concerned minister. She has apologized, not only in front of me, in front of the House also, but our opponents have exploited it, and then it has vitiated the atmosphere. That hurt us also.
One other thing, people say that in the 8 months that you've been power at the center, the BJP slowly, steadily transformed into an arrogant party. You became distant and aloof, and that magical contact you had with the people snapped.
Yes. 8 months, you have won 7 elections, lost 1 election, so everything is gone. And that too, there are specific reasons. My Prime Minister, I am proud, fortunate to say that he has a direct connect with the people. Even today, let there be any opinion poll or any survey, he will be the #1 popular Prime Minister.
Except that one of the things that happened is that the public perception of the Prime Minister also changed in the wrong direction. Earlier, he was seen as the chaiwala who'd won power. He was admired for that. Then he became the man who wore the 10 lakh pinstripe suit, and people said the chaiwala has become a plutocrat. Yes. Do you think Mr. Modi's image went in the wrong direction?
I don't think. There were some people who could not digest the emergence of Modi in the national politics, in the media, in the opposition and in the critical circles. They were waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity has come, so they are trying to find out this, that and all. Where is the question of arrogance? The Prime Minister of India, he consults everybody, he discusses with everybody, he opens up, and then he talks to the people, take their suggestions also. And first of all, you must try to understand, India is a huge country. He has just become Prime Minister. He is trying to address one after another. You can't expect everything to happen overnight. Lastly, let me say it, we have inherited a very bad situation. A fiscal deficit, a revenue deficit, a trade deficit, a current account deficit, above all trust deficit. Those things are being addressed one after another. You cannot create wealth overnight. You cannot bring back economy and rail overnight. He is doing his best. He is working day and out, day and night. And then he is taking new ideas, and then he is also taking suggestions. How can anybody call him arrogant? I'm not able to understand.
Are you then suggesting that the press, which used to be very supportive of Mr. Modi, now 8 months later, is becoming questioning, perhaps becoming
Nothing
skeptical?
wrong in questioning, sir. Questioning their right is their right. It's a healthy sign in democracy. But don't attribute motives without giving sufficient time. And I'm not blaming the entire media.
But some parts.
I said some sections of the media were waiting. They couldn't digest. It's because of ideological bent of mind. They couldn't digest the BJP getting absolute majority. They couldn't digest an ordinary person like Modi becoming Prime Minister of India.
But has Mr. Modi suffered as a result of those small elements of the media? Is that one reason why he's today seen as arrogant? He's seen as the pinstripe suit
I don't
rather
think so.
than the chaiwala?
I don't think so that people are seeing him as arrogant. People love him. They have full affection. There is no change with regard to admiration for Narendra Modi. Let there be any test that will be known. These are all local elections and local factors of influence, Delhi.
My last question on the Delhi elections. You were good enough to say that this is a situation which has been a setback. It's embarrassing. You have lessons to learn. How long will it take the BJP to learn these lessons? How much time do you give
For
yourself?
every election, you have to learn lessons. From every experiment, you have to learn lessons. It's a continuous process. And then in your country, it's not like you have elections once in 5 years. Every 3 months, every 6 months, there is an election. There is an election yesterday in Assam. The BJP has won 37 out of 71 municipalities. And Madhya Pradesh, there was an election corporation.
Are you saying
14 corporations we have won hands down after Delhi.
Absolutely. But are you suggesting that therefore there's no deadline for learning these elections? The time is on your side?
At the earliest, sir, any party which is wise enough, because the time is running fast, you have to learn lessons quickly.
So are those meetings happening behind
They will
closed
be
doors?
happening. In normal course, they will be happening. The leadership is alive to the reality and to the challenges.
All right, let's come to a second subject. On Tuesday, the Prime Minister finally addressed the growing concern in the country as a result of issues like Ghar Wapsi campaigns, attacks on churches, love jihad protests. And it was a very forceful, effective speech. But people said, why didn't he make this speech many months earlier?
My point is, one speech of Prime Minister is going to stop all this. Is it happening first time in India, such incidents? How many incidents have happened earlier? Why we are talking about only attacks on church? There were attacks on church, there were attacks on temples also. There were attacks on other religious places of worship also. This is a phenomena which has to be curbed, and we must all join together. One party is not responsible, please. Secondly, about Ghar Wapasi. What is Ghar Wapasi? Conversion. Is conversion wrong? If reconversion is wrong, conversion also is wrong. My point is, people voluntarily change their faith. It is for them.
There are many issues that you've raised, and I'd like to take them up one by one, but I want to begin by what you said, that we have to together curb this, and we have to work hard at it. And that's why I ask, why didn't the Prime Minister speak out earlier? For months,
You are saying Prime Minister is acting unilaterally. There is only one minister in this government. Earlier, Home Ministers condemned it. Home Minister held talks with them.
But the PM was silent. The PM was silent.
PM is the head at the end of the day. After all, every minister has been assigned certain responsibility. We are performing our responsibility, and Prime Minister also, at an appropriate time, he also spoke on an appropriate occasion.
Mr. Naidu, you're a very accomplished politician. You understand better than me that in politics, timing is the most important thing. People were waiting, wanting, asking, demanding for the PM to speak out, and he was silent. When he finally did, he left it so late, people feel he's done it under compulsion rather than willingly.
Why is the compulsion now? What is the compulsion now? If it is compulsion, you should have spoken it before election. Please try to understand.
Compulsions. One, he lost and lost badly. Number two, Mr. Obama, the President of America, has been going on about the lack of tolerance for religious diversity in India.
It's better we talk less about Obama. What is happening back home, let Obama see it for himself. The attacks on temples, the attacks on blacks, the killing of minority people the other day and all. These things are happening in different parts of the country. It's very easy to pinpoint at others, but at the same time, everybody should introspect. It is a societal behavior in different parts of the world. Please try to understand. Unfortunately, in this country, Hindu bashing or attributing everything to Hindu organizations has become a fashion. I am saying whoever does something wrong, as you said rightly about that Haramjada, that comment, or even the 4 children, 6 children, or somebody saying I want to install idols in every other place of worship, they are all wrong. I have no hesitation in not only distancing my party, in condemning and disagreeing with those views. At an appropriate time, there also has been advised accordingly by the party. But my point is that alone will not suffice. People who are playing vote bank politics, who are trying to divide people on the basis of religion and majority and minority, they should also ponder, and then please try to understand, Karanji, these issues are law and order issues in many states, and states are, fortunately, are ruled by different parties. Ghar Wapasi has happened in Uttar Pradesh, ruled by Samajwadi Party. How do you blame Narendra Modi for Ghar Wapasi there?
You know, less than 24 hours after the Prime Minister's very powerful, some would say almost emotional speech at a Christian gathering, the Joint General Secretary of the VHP, a gentleman called Surendra Jain, said to the Times of India that everyone had misunderstood the Prime Minister, the press in particular had misunderstood him. Mr. Jain said the Prime Minister was not reassuring Christians, he was giving Christians a warning not to attack the Hindu faith and to be tolerant of Hindus, in other words, to change their attitude to Hindus.
He was addressing, Prime Minister was addressing the entire nation. He did not identify any particular religion. Religious tolerance is one for all. And Article 25 guarantees it in this constitution. He was very clear and categorical. If somebody has understood in a different manner, it is up to him. I don't agree with the comments made by Mr. Jain.
One other thing that Mr. Jain said, and he said it to the Times of India again, is that the VHP and their associates' Ghar Wapsi campaigns, as well as their protests against alleged love jihad, will continue.
As long as they do it in a peaceful manner, in a legal manner, if people are converted in a legal manner, if they convert on their own, nobody should have any objection. If there is allurement, if there is an inducement, and if there is an offer of other things, then the law must take its own course, and law has to be taken course by the state government.
Yesterday on this program, the head of the Catholic Church in Delhi, the Archbishop of Delhi, Anil Kuto, said that he believes the Prime Minister was sincere, he's reassured by the Prime Minister, but he added, he wants to see delivery. In other words, if these Ghar Wapsi campaigns begin again, if these protests against love jihad begin again, this time he'd like to see your government step in and proactively stop them.
Law has to take its own course. As per the constitution, what is law is clearly well established. The law, if something happens in Aligarh, it is for the district magistrate, not for Narendra Modi or cabinet secretary to act upon. I am not able to understand. If the central government intervenes in a state, they say you are affecting the federal structure. If they don't interfere and the state government do not take action, then you try to find fault with this thing. And then how many people are getting converted in this country? Please try to understand. I would like you people also to focus on this aspect. How many people are getting converted? With what sort of inducements? Why the media is silent on that? My point is, some sections of the media are silent on conversion, violent on reconversion. My appeal to all of us is conversion and reconversion has to be voluntary. If there is any force or any allurement, any inducement, law must take its own course, irrespective of which religion it is.
You know, I completely agree with what you're saying as an individual, but as I heard you speak, I remembered what the convener, then convener of the Dharm Jagran Manch had said to the Economic Times in December. He said that 4,000 Muslim or Christian families were going to be converted in Aligarh on Christmas Day. And he said two important things. He said, first of all, Aligarh was being chosen because he wanted to reclaim it as a Hindu city. Secondly, he said Christmas was being chosen because he wanted a trial of strength between Hinduism and Christianity.
That was disapproved by RSS even, one. And secondly, they are different organizations. You can't hold the government responsible for each and every statement made by is the entire Muslim community is going to be judged on the account of the speeches made by Sultan Asaduddin Owaisi. My point is, these are different organizations. As far as choosing 25th December, totally wrong, according to me, according to my party, according to my government. Secondly, you can't tom-tom and say that I am going to do this, I am going to do this, and then at the end of the day, what has happened, everybody's knowledge. My inducement or allurement is against the law. Law must take its own course.
You said a very correct thing when you said that law is a state subject. If Ghar Wapsi is happening in UP, it has to be tackled by the UP government. That is the constitutional federal position in India. However, yours is the central government. If you genuinely believe, as you said now, that choosing Christmas Day was the wrong thing, wanting a trial of strength between Christianity and Hinduism is the wrong tactic, then at that point of time, your government should have spoken out. Even though these are federal issues to be managed by the states, guidance should come from Delhi.
Karanji, you are so intelligent, so knowledgeable. I don't know how you forgot it. On the day when the item came, I spoke to the district magistrate Agra and then Aligarh. Then I made a statement in Parliament. I disapproved it. And then I clarified the situation. Then Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav, former Chief Minister, one of the senior-most leaders of the country, he stood up and said, "What are we discussing? There is nothing happening there. Why are you creating tensions? If you want, I will send you that clipping of his speech in Parliament." He said, "What are you doing here? Why are you creating and then creating hype in the country?"
So what you are saying to the Archbishop of Delhi when he says that I would like to see delivery is that don't worry, delivery happened earlier and delivery will happen again.
It will happen. It should be our endeavor to see that allurement, force, endurements are not applied for reconversion and conversion. Let us all work for the universal brotherhood. Let us maintain peace. Let us give the option to the people to propagate, teach, profess the religion of their faith rather than interfering from outside.
Now that the Prime Minister has made this very reassuring speech, which has been welcomed by Christians, by Muslims and by Hindus, where do you stand on your demand for a law to ban forced conversions? Is it still an issue?
This is another try to understand. This is another wrong interpretation. What I said in Parliament is there on record. I said, they are all saying these conversions are happening, the centre is silent, why are you doing this, why are you doing that, why are you not doing this, these people are getting converted. I said conversion and reconversion. If they are by force or allurement, they are bad. In spite of that, if you want to have a anti-conversion law, let there be a consensus and let us move in that direction. Let there be a consensus.
That's the important thing. You're saying that law, an anti-conversion law, should only happen by consensus.
Yes.
This is not something your government will try and push through.
Never. I assured the Parliament, there is no proposal by the government to bring such law unless there is a consensus, and that too I said, let the opposition respond, then only we'll take further steps. That's what I said. I stand by my assurance. I can tell you through you to the people of India, there is no proposal before the government to bring any anti-conversion or anti-reconversion law. I leave it to the collective wisdom of the Parliament.
This is a very important thing you've said, Mr. Naidu, and I applaud you for saying it so openly and fully. I wish it had been heard more clearly earlier. It would have brought greater comfort to people, but I'm glad you've said it now. You stand by this.
I stand by that. I appeal to the people not to go by headlines. I'm not talking about your TV. Not to go by simple headlines. Go to the text of my statement and then come to a conclusion.
And Mr. Modi stands with you when you say this?
Definitely. And I speak something, I speak for the party. I speak for my government.
Mr. Naidu, let's take a break at that point. When I come back, I want to raise with you two other critical issues. The nature of the talks that the BJP is holding with the People's Democratic Party of Kashmir, whether you can come to an agreement with them, whether a common minimum program is possible to facilitate a coalition government. And secondly, I want to talk to you about the forthcoming session of Parliament, and in particular about the future of those ordinances. Will they convert into acts? Will they allow and be lapsed? Or, at the end of the day, will you have to reissue the ordinances? All of that in a moment's time. Stick with us because there's still a lot to come. Welcome back to a special episode of To The Point. My guest is the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu. In part one, we spoke about the Delhi election results and about the Prime Minister's speech on Tuesday, reassuring Christians. Now we turn to two other critical issues. The talks this government is having with the PDP to try and form a coalition government in Jammu and Kashmir, and of course, the forthcoming session of Parliament. Can those ordinances be converted into acts, or will they be allowed to lapse? Mr. Naidu, let's come to a third subject that is of importance. It is the talks that are going on between your party, the BJP, and the PDP to try and form a common minimum program so that you can form a coalition government in Jammu and Kashmir. Newspaper reports suggest that a lot of progress has been made, And yet there are said to be one or two areas which are still hurdles. I want to talk about one or two of them.
But I am sorry to say to you that I am not dealing with that subject. I am not even interfering in that. And that's being dealt by party functionaries at different level. And it comes to the conclusion that we brought before the parliamentary board, then we'll all come into the picture.
Absolutely. I'm only going to ask you broad questions where in fact it's not your actual knowledge of the details that matters, it's your stand on terms of principle that I'm questioning. One issue that the PDP is keen on is that the abrogation of Article 370 should be put on the back burner. Now, I know when you fought the election in Maharashtra in September, you willingly put statehood for Vidarbha on the back burner for 5 years, and it was an equally important issue of conviction. Can you do the same for Article 370?
Let us first wait for the outcome of the discussions, then only make comments. In between making comments, it's not my habit. And making out of turn comments also is no good for anybody.
But you seem to me to have an open mind. You don't have a closed mind. You're not saying immediately, no, this is out of the way.
See, I am not saying either yes or no. I am leaving it to the people who are negotiating it, who are part of the discussion. I have full confidence in their wisdom. They know the principles of the government and the party.
One other thing. When the BJP put Vidarbha on the back burner, you were indicating a certain willingness to adjust to a reality which you thought was important because coming to power was the first goal. How important is it for the BJP to be part of a government in India's only Muslim majority state?
I don't consider it like Muslim or a Hindu majority. Kashmir is an integral part of India. We have to take every steps to keep the same intact. And then we must do everything possible to have a democratically elected government in Kashmir. That is in the larger interest of the country. How do you go about it? Those details are being discussed. And then you must also understand, as you rightly said, you must understand the reality. What is the mandate of the people? No single party has been given majority. And some parties which have ruled and promised everything, they could not deliver. People rejected them. And these two parties have been given comparatively more mandate than others. That's why these two parties in the larger interest of the country, even in the interest of the unity and integrity of the country, keeping in view the sensitivity of Kashmir, they are holding talks. I am sure they'll come to some meaningful conclusions. As I am not part of it on day-to-day basis, I don't want to comment at this stage on this.
Absolutely, and I won't ask you to comment on the details at all, but given the nature of the mandate, you swept Jammu, the PDP swept the valley. Is there any other government that's possible? That's A. And B, if you don't come together, isn't there a terrible danger that the two halves of the state will be divided?
That's why the efforts are on to form a coalition. You must see that country remains together. Kashmir is integral part of India. Jammu aspirations also kept in mind because for long term, Jammu is feeling neglected, discriminated upon. That should be addressed also. At the same time, the concerns of the people of Valley, we have given a good amount of number of seats to the PDP. They also has to be kept in mind. How do you marry these two? That's for these negotiators who are discussing.
Mufti Muhammad Saeed in an interview to The Hindu has said that a Modi-Mufti alliance would send a very powerful message to the country. Secondly, he says, it would change the way minorities view Mr. Modi's government in Delhi, and it would change possibly the way the international community views the Indian government. Do you agree with that thinking?
I'm happy about what he has said. We are moving in that direction. Let us see what will happen.
There's one issue that I'd like to ask you about in principle. Again, you can't give me details. I'm not asking you to reveal what's actually going on behind closed doors. But it's the issue of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. This is an emotional issue for the PDP. They want immediate withdrawal from certain parts, and then they want complete withdrawal within a year. The BJP, on the other hand, says that the army must be consulted because it's a stakeholder. And you know and I know that the army is not just against complete withdrawal, the army is against immediate withdrawal as well. Can you sort out AFSP, or will that be a sticking point?
It's not the army which is a stakeholder, the entire country. Unity and integrity of Kashmir is non-negotiable, one. Secondly, even today, what is the reality? There are 40 camps, aided, abetted, funded, trained by our neighbor. It's a well-known international secret. That being the case, we cannot afford to withdraw APSPA from Kashmir totally. How do you go about it? How do you deal with that? Those nicety has to be worked. But it's a very important issue. It's a very dear issue to every Indian, not to Kashmir people alone, not to army alone. It's not an army's personal problem. It's a country's problem. So that being the case, we have strong views on that. And our people who are discussing with PDP, they will be able to make PDP to understand the importance of the forces to stay there for some time, till such time as till it is required. And then we move forward.
How confident are you that these people negotiating with the PDP will be able to make PDP understand this?
Either you make them understand or they make you understand, and let us try to understand each other, and then country understands better than both of us. That should be the principle.
But there is a third choice. It's not just you get them to understand you or you understand them. The third choice is you don't come to an understanding. Is there a danger that at the end of the day, a PDP-BJP government will not be possible because issues like Article 370 and AFSPA will divide?
There are differences among different political parties. Otherwise, why should there be this many number of parties? There are different views, different ideological this thing. The beauty of it is trying to narrow down the differences and then arrive at common minimum program and rule the state as per the mandate of the people. But my point is, these things are not debated in TV studios.
Absolutely.
They have to be discussed in closed door meeting, analyzed, understood, explained.
Are you confident of success?
I'm sure.
How much time do you give yourself?
I don't want to give any time, and I also ask you not to fix any time frame. It's a very delicate issue.
In other words, the media should give the PDP and BJP time.
Yes.
And not keep the focus of glare and publicity on them.
That's what I am appealing.
Let it happen behind closed doors. It's so important. Give us time and do it in a silent, quiet way.
That's what I am saying. And moreover, at the end of the day, everything will be made public.
My last issue, and it's to do in fact with the fact that in 4 days from today, the Parliament session convenes. Many people believe that after the Delhi election results, your government has its back to the wall. As
Why?
Parliamentary Affairs Minister, are you anticipating a difficult session?
Why? No, who is the person who is going to stand in front of me in Parliament and then accuse me? Which party which has won the election in Delhi? Congress? Left? Samajwadi? BSP? Or TMC? What is it these people have got to do with the Delhi election? The moment they talk of Delhi election, the situation will be otherwise. My point is, opposition did not allow the Parliament to function, Rajya Sabha particularly in last time. And then there is so much of this thing across the country. People are thinking that we must function effectively, discuss, debate and decide rather than disrupt. I appeal to the opposition parties once again, please let us discuss, debate. I propose, you oppose, let the House dispose. That should be the idea.
Except for the fact that the opposition has been emboldened by the fact that the BJP not only lost Delhi but was left with just 3 seats, and that strengthens them, and now they believe...
How it will strengthen them? They lost miserably. So I don't think at all they are not that much wise enough not to understand this. This is again a wrong notion. They have done it earlier. This time they will understand. Country wants development. People want development. People want good governance. In that direction, if they want to oppose, they are free to oppose. Nothing wrong.
People say the real test of this parliamentary session will be whether you can get support in the Rajya Sabha for the critical ordinances that you want to convert into acts. And I'm talking in particular about insurance, land acquisition, coal and mining. Can you get those ordinances converted into acts?
I am trying my best. We have already drafted the bills approved by the cabinet. They are going to be brought before the parliament, and it is as per the constitution, you have to place them before parliament, get approval within the 6 weeks of placing it before the parliament. That is somewhere around first week of April. So that being the case, I am discussing with opposition parties, and then I am trying to urge upon them, you please support us. If you don't want to support, oppose also, no problem. Let there be a constructive debate, and let the House decide.
But you know how you began your answer? I am trying my best.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very confident.
The question is, how can you take anybody for granted? But I am not doubting them also. It's in a democracy. I can only appeal. I can't force anybody.
But you know the problem, and I'll take land acquisition to illustrate that problem. It's not just the opposition parties in parliament who are against that particular ordinance. It's said in the newspapers that elements of the RSS and the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh are against it. Many of them plan to hold protests, dharnas, demonstrations in Delhi. Can you stand up to your own people
The people
objecting?
say there will be different viewpoints of different organizations. Sometimes there will be divergent views also. But we are in the government, we are in better know of things, and we have to handle the situation. Country needs growth, country needs industrialization, country needs business in order to create wealth and then distribute among the people, and also to eradicate poverty. You need industrialization, you need growth. That is the need of the hour. That's why we are doing this, and there is no question of hurting the interest of the farming community at all. BJP will be the first party to safeguard the interest of the farmers. There is no question of forced land acquisition also.
Personally, I agree with everything you're saying, but my personal views don't count. Can you ensure that whatever influence or pressure comes from the BKS or the BMS or even from within the RSS doesn't, for instance, force you to dilute the land acquisition ordinance?
So there is no question of going back on this ordinance. We have studied it well, held extensive consultations. We held consultation with the state governments ruled by different political parties. Most of them have suggested, in fact, wanted this to come. And after that deliberations only we brought this. And let us now wait for the parliament session. If some meaningful suggestion comes and more constructive meaningful suggestions come, the government will be open to such ideas.
But when you say there's no question of going back on the land acquisition ordinance, you're guaranteeing to me you will not dilute it to pass it.
No, the point is, if suppose a meaningful suggestion comes, why should I say now itself, I'm not going to accept any suggestion? In a democracy, that's not the way you do it.
But will you dilute it?
I'm not saying I'm diluting it. I'm open to constructive suggestions.
Most people feel that these ordinances will only become acts if you hold a joint session of parliament. Are you prepared to do that?
See, the moment somebody talks of joint session, the other parties will start to say, you are doubting us, you are doubting us, you are bypassing us and all.
But the other parties are already saying they won't pass these ordinances. Yeah, Congress has made that clear.
That's the unfortunate thing. And some parties also said we don't even allow this thing to function also. And then they said we'll go on sending it to committees.
So I come back to my question.
No, you are right in raising your question. My point is, when we speak of joint sitting, there is no joint session like that. Please try to understand. There is only joint sitting of parliament. This is again a wrong notion that's going on across the country. The joint sitting option is available in the Constitution. That only has been quoted some time back. We didn't speak about joint sitting so far. We have not come to that situation. We still have confidence that we'll be able to convince our friends in the opposition and get these ordinances converted into laws. Let us wait.
But if you don't get them converted into laws, then are you at least mentally prepared for a joint sitting?
I am not willing to join the academic debate. Everybody knows what is the constitutional provision, and some of the opposition friends, they know better than me because they have been in power for long.
2-3 technical questions, because you're Parliamentary Affairs Minister and you can actually shed light on this. Is one joint sitting of Parliament sufficient to clear all the pending ordinances, or do you need a separate joint sitting for each ordinance?
I don't want to get into this discussion at all. Then my friends will say, see, he's already threatening us by saying that he'll call a joint sitting. He's saying...
No, but I'm only asking you to clarify.
I don't want to. Why should I have this academic discussion now, Karanji? We can discuss it later. You know better. There are enough studies on it, enough precedents also on that.
It seems to people that you're not answering because the answer would be an awkward one from your point of view. Isn't that why you're not answering?
It's not a question of awkward. It's efficacy. In democracy, you must always have confidence in the system and then try to exhaust it till such time you need to go for another alternative.
Except, Mr. Naidu, I was asking you a question not just out of curiosity, but to clear a simple factual point for the audience. Do we need a joint sitting for each ordinance, or can one joint sitting handle all the ordinances? It's a factual question.
I will tackle it as I come to face such situation. There is no need to debate and discuss it now.
My final question.
I am a Parliamentary Affairs Minister. I have a dual responsibility to take the House along with me and also carry forward the government business.
So clearly in the answer to the question I've posed 2 or 3 times lies something that would embarrass you if you gave the answer.
It's not a question of embarrassing, it's a question of efficacy. Being a Parliamentary Affairs Minister, you must be always giving the benefit to the Parliament rather than doubting them and then talking about the alternative.
My last question. If by, say, the 5th, 6th of April, which is the cut-off point, you are unable to convert these ordinances into acts, what happens? Will you then reissue ordinances?
I'm not doubting at all. Reissuing ordinance, there is a provision, there is a precedent that I don't want to talk about.
I'll tell you why I asked the question, because you began by saying, I will try my best. That's not a guarantee of success. So I'm then saying to you, if you don't succeed, will you reissue the ordinances or will you let them lapse?
If you say no, then you'll say the government is arrogant. They don't bother about Parliament. They're already predetermined. Why should I give scope for such?
It's not arrogance. You see, some companies One example would be, in fact, those who want to invest in Max Bupa have already announced that they will increase their level of investment in insurance up to 49%. They've announced it, it's been public. Now, if the ordinance lapses, what happens to that commitment by Bupa to go up to 49% in Max Bupa?
The spirit of the law will continue. By what means? Let us wait for the Parliament.
What about people who want to use the land acquisition ordinance or the coal block ordinance to invest, to put money in, to create jobs? Don't they need some assurance that you will reissue?
They have full assurance the law will continue.
Even if the ordinance isn't passed?
Why should I doubt anybody?
So what you're saying to me, and I'm reading between the lines, I'm not going to give you a clear answer, but equally you're giving me an assurance to these investors that the law will continue.
So my point is, don't try to read in between the lines and don't make it a headline. Our line is very clear, the law will continue.
All right, Mr. Naidu, that will have to be the answer. The audiences will have to interpret it for themselves. But I'll ask you to repeat it one more time. The law will continue as far as all these ordinances are concerned.
That is the conviction of the government.
Mr. Naidu, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.